Agringada y My So-Called Bilingual Life by Erika Garza Johnson. My first memory concerning language may not be a memory at all. It may be a story I've been told so many times it has become a memory. It takes place back in the 80s, when I was a little booger about 3. I was at Abuelita's and my grandparents were speaking, and I asked my parents, why do they say so many bad words? It may seem cute to someone when you are a preschooler to think that the language of your ancestors is so foreign it sounds like cuss words. Being an adult, however, I think, why didn't they teach me their language? My brother and sister spoke it, so why couldn't my parents teach it to me? Well, it's a complicated story. But I think I know enough about my family history that I can assume a few things. I know my siblings had everyday access to Spanish, being that they lived with my abuelos when they were small children. I know that it was because we had our own home when I was born and my parents spoke English. My siblings spoke English, so it was our home language. Although my parents still spoke Spanish to each other. Actually, Spanglish. My padres could code switch bien padre. Mi mama still talks like that. I don't even think she realizes she was speaking either Spanish or English. I remember being about 6 when I was called gringa. I wasn't sure what to feel. I might have believed I was. My neighbor, Mrs. Redding, who was a teacher, would give me a ride to school. Everyone thought she was my grandma. Some kids didn't like me at all when they found this out about me. I remember that I was taught Spanish with 2 other kids and we sat at a small table and learned words like mono for monkey, which I always thought monkeys were changos because that's what my family called me. I remember learning manzana, plátano, azul, pelota. I think I always knew Spanish, but I could never feel comfortable speaking it. I was almost discouraged to do so. Ay, pobrecita, no puede hablar muy bien en español, someone would inevitably say. Abuelita or Granny, my paternal and maternal grandmothers, respectively. See, I was almost as gringa as you get. I spoke only English, I listened to only English music, and I thought nothing about the fact that when I was out in the sun for more than a few minutes, I would start bronzing. I used to even freak out when we'd go to Las Flores and how foreign this all was to me. Everyone spoke in the language of my family, and I couldn't talk to anyone. However, I was not totally unaware of Spanish. Not to mention that my grandparents spoke to me in Spanish and I would answer them in English, but we also went to Spanish Mass. Algo que nunca voy a olvidar es que la misa católica es en español. Aprendí el Padre Nuestro, Ave María y el Credo. Yo creo que también sé la misa entera en español. Rezando en español para mí era como mi propio respiro. I learned Spanish in Mass and in las novelas. Don't double-cross me, women, because I can tell you off in my novela Spanish. Descarada, condenada, resbalosa, etc. I started writing poetry at the age of 13. Seriously writing. Like all I did was read and write poetry. I read all the poems that we were assigned in English class. I wanted to be like these amazing dead white guys that didn't have abuelas making fun of their Spanish or telling them to stay out of the sun because they would get dark and feos. What did I have in common with Ezra Pound or T.S. Eliot and all the gringas who were educated in fancy schools and cold climates and never had to sweat in their poor casitas? I wanted to be a poet. I was not going to be successful until I was completely integrated. My 2 halves. As if I had a personality disorder. When I was in the 10th grade, I read Carmen Tafoya. I was shocked. If you're not familiar with her work, she utilizes code switching as a poetic device. It took me years of reading Chicana literature to make me realize I had been shortchanging my poems. I had always messed around with the little Spanish I spoke. However, in college, I decided to major in anthropology after the English department pissed me off for the last time. I decided that after much research on Mexican American culture, Mexican American folklore and history, that I had something to say. I was going to use my languages and make me who I am. I have yet to regret this decision. I know I never will. This is how I finally came to terms with my identity. So, to paraphrase Gloria Anzaldua's words, if you really want to hurt me, make fun of my language. This mezcla of Spanish and English is my language, is my poetry.